Hello, I am here today to present on natural selection and its purposes. I think we can find that it has a great deal of use, so we're just going to dive right in. Natural selection was first discovered by Charles Darwin in the 1800s, and with his study of the Galapagos Islands, he found many different things that we utilize today in our study of natural selection. So I'm going to show you some resources and just some general information on natural selection today. So here I'm going to show a little simulation that shows how natural selection work. It shows a population of rabbits. This simulation is easily found with the URL found at the end of this video, but if I just click add a friend here, it adds a second rabbit, and from there it goes on where the rabbits continue to reproduce, as you can see here, and the population grows. And you can see how natural selection works by adding in a selection factor such as wolves that we can see here. So the wolves immediately start taking out a lot of the rabbits, and that's definitely a problem, right? So very quickly I think we're going to see that this population is going to decline, and that's because the rabbits have white fur, a trait that is selected against in this situation. And as we can see, all the bunnies died. It's game over. So if we click play again, add a friend, and selection factor of wolves, well, let's change the environment first. So white wolves, they're currently at the equator where they're very easy to be seen, but if we go to the Arctic, a little bit harder to see them. We add in wolves. They miss a lot of the rabbits, as you can see there. And that's what tends to happen. The trait of whiteness is selected for in this population because they are better able to avoid the wolves. Now, let's add in mutation. Let's add in some brown fur and see what happens. So now we see the brown rabbits get picked off very quickly. So as we can see here, the population is experiencing natural selection. Certain traits are being selected against, and we are seeing natural selection at work here. This is a great example of natural selection, a great simulation to use. I highly recommend it, and it's very easy to find, and for any biology teachers, it is a great resource to utilize. Now I will go ahead and include a little segment from Khan Academy. Khan Academy is a great resource to explain a lot of things. So this video explains natural selection very well. And as I said with the PhET simulation, it is a great resource for biology teachers to utilize.
If we were to rewind the clock back about 70 million years, you would see dinosaurs roaming the earth. And this is a very nice picture here of a dinosaur enjoying a sunset at the beach. But unfortunately for the dinosaurs, about 65 million years ago, we believe that a huge meteorite struck the Earth and essentially wiped out the dinosaurs. And they probably wiped out a bunch of other species with it. Because you can imagine the shock wave itself would just exterminate tons of species. Then you would have the tsunami of unimaginable size that would just envelop the continents for some period of time. And then you would have all of the soot that would go into the air and maybe make it impossible for most of the plant species to live because it would be blocking out all of the sunlight. And so in an environment like that, we could imagine that an animal like this would be well suited to survive. It's sitting there underground. Maybe it can hibernate in some way so it doesn't need food for long periods of time. Maybe it has its own food stash under there someplace. And so we believe that our ancient ancestors, after this mass extinction event, might have been something like this, kind of a mole-looking rodent animal that was protected from all of this craziness that was happening on the surface because they like to hang out underground and have all their food nearby them, and maybe they could hibernate in some way. So you can imagine once the everything settled down, and now we're talking, who knows, hundreds of years, thousands of years, even millions of years, some of this guy's descendants start to poke their head out of the ground. You're like, you know what? There's food in trees, and there's no one else in the trees, and trees are a good place to maybe get away from some of the other predators that have managed to survive this mass extinction event. And some of its ancestors or some of its descendants, I should say, that were good at climbing trees, decide, hey, let's try this tree thing out. And so you started to have some selection for the descendants of this rodents that could climb trees well. They were able to find food where their ancestors couldn't. They could find protection in the trees where their ancestors couldn't. And so you could imagine that some subset of this guy's descendants evolved into something that might have looked like this guy. And all the pictures I'm showing you, these are of modern animals, except for, of course, the dinosaur. I'm sure this was kind of photoshopped in some way. This is a modern bush baby, but I show this picture because it could have been what some of these primitive primates look like. Because a bush baby, it kind of climbs trees. It kind of looks like it's starting to get a hand here to start climbing the trees, but it also has rodent-like qualities. But this is, of course, a modern version of it. So this bush baby's ancient ancestor might have been that primitive primate or that species of primitive primate that was a descendant of rodents that started saying, hey, let's see if we can climb these trees and find some food. And then some of its descendants might have had just the right adaptations, found their own little niche in the right ecosystems, and they would have evolved into monkeys. Once again, this is a modern monkey, but you could imagine some type of primitive monkey. And then some of those primitive monkeys' descendants, they turn into these modern monkeys eventually, but some of them, they grow larger in size, they spend more time outside of trees, they lose their tail, they don't need it as much for balance. Maybe it's actually a bad thing to have because someone else could grab it when you're in a fight or something like that. And they evolve into apes, and in particular the great apes. So one of the great apes involve gorillas and chimpanzees and the ancestor, or really the great apes also include humanity. So let me just review back on this timeline just so that we don't get confused. I'll review.
Now, I'd just like to take the opportunity to give some credit to Khan Academy and to the PhET simulation for just being fantastic resources. And again, I please encourage anyone to utilize these. These are great resources for education and for teaching young minds. And thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it very informative, and have a wonderful day.